Should I go up? I'd suggest you go up. Thank you. What about that other little guy beside you?
That voice behind the camera? That's my grandpa, Richard Fyfe. He's always been passionate about wildlife and has done some amazing things. He won the Order of Canada for his efforts in saving the American peregrine falcon.
You lost something else. I'm going to get my hat and elevator.
Fastest land animal on the planet? Cheetah, yeah. How many guys and gals think the cheetah is the fastest animal on the planet? Give me a show of hands. Come on, teachers, when you were their age? Yeah, that's what I was told. Well, boy, have I got some news for you guys and gals. The fastest animal on this planet, hands down, is the species of bird standing right in front of you.
It all started in the late 60s, when the peregrine was on the verge of extinction. My grandfather wanted to do something about it. I was so fascinated by this story that I wanted to explore it through the lens of my camera.
The project that we did was, this is in my mind, I believe that we had an almost impossible task ahead of us. And I mean, this has been what's happened over time with many, many species. Species that have become extinct have been left to their own resources, as it were, and they did that. They simply died out.
It was discovered that DDT, a pesticide that became famous after World War II, prevents falcons from retaining the calcium levels they need for strong eggshells.
We started using it for everything. We used it for, they painted children with it practically in many cases and put it in household use. It had very low toxicity to vertebrates. And it was a miracle insecticide, it was thought to be. And we didn't start to realize the sublethal effects of the compound on vertebrates until probably the 1960s, when species like bald eagle, peregrine falcon, Cooper's hawk, some of these species started to decline in numbers.
I don't think for the most part we were aware up until that point in time the extent of the effect that these chemicals had on birds of prey.
You can ingest DDT, but you can't digest it. Once you've got it stored in your system, it's stored in your cells, you've got it in your system forever. And this DDT stuff, as it worked its way up the food chain, it accumulated, bioaccumulated they say, and magnified each time it worked its way up that chain to the top, and the peregrines got the larger doses of it.
I think one thing that hasn't been mentioned and you heard very little about was that birds of prey are in a group we refer to as indicator species. And in a way, they're monitoring a very large ecosystem and showing us what is happening.
This bird represents, for us as human beings, for all intents and purposes, the canary in the mines. Had it not been for this bird's almost demise on this continent and certainly in other places around the world, there's a good probability that you and I still maybe even using DDT on our food and in our homes today. It was this bird that told us that story.
And it was this bird whose very existence was at risk.
At that time, we presented a petition, if you would, I guess, to the federal provincial wildlife managers who were meeting, and suggested that we be allowed to take a small number of any remaining peregrines. And we were given the go-ahead to take some into captivity to set up a breeding program specifically to breed and reintroduce the birds, hopefully back to the wild.
Our federal Canadian government actually got into the bird breeding business. And they set up and financed, ran and managed a breeding facility out in Wainwright, Alberta, in which they accumulated as many peregrine falcons from the wild as they could to try and bolster the population of this species before we lost it.
When we first got the birds from the wild and brought them into captivity, there were no facilities. There was no place for the birds to go. And I happened to live on an acreage with a bunch of old buildings, and we literally changed my backyard into a series of pens where we held birds of prey. At one point, I think we had up to about 60 birds of prey in the backyard that were being held and would be going to a facility which was being built at the time in Wainwright.
Teams of researchers all around the world collaborated in figuring out how to breed these birds in captivity, something that had never been done before.
Some of my best friends and the people I worked with were people in Europe, in the United States, and this was it. It was collaboration, not competition.
My grandfather's team was the first to have their own falcons return as parents, his greatest accomplishment. Almost 20 years later, he would be awarded the Order of Canada.
As you can see by his wings, we don't clip his wings.
I contacted the Canadian Peregrine Foundation in Toronto. I was surprised to find out they knew who I was through my grandfather's legacy. Mark Nash's story begins where my grandfather's left off.
We became very actively involved 17 years ago in outreach educational programs in which we introduce the students to some of our species at risk. And we utilize live peregrine falcons basically to introduce and teach these children at this impressionable age what this bird, what the species, what its importance and relevance is, and where it fits into our environment and the ecosystem, and basically that these animals need our support.
Part of that support is being the bird's public relations department. He is the link between building managers, the public, and the falcons.
It's a treat. I got involved in this industry with the Canadian Peregrine Foundation 17 years ago. I'm the co-founder. On the good days, I'm the executive director and president of the Canadian Peregrine Foundation. On the bad days, I'm a volunteer and I haven't a clue what's going on around here. But the good news is for me, for 11 months of the year, I'm sitting behind a desk, immersed, swamped in the administration side of it. For a month or 2 months a year, I actually have an opportunity to get back involved with the birds, get out on the road, get into the school, speak to the kids, and be with the birds.
I think there's something here that a lot of people don't understand, and that is, I think in life that there are people that have many different directions and many different goals, but there are also people in life who have incredible enthusiasm and fascination with certain areas, and people with that kind of enthusiasm, their primary interest is not climbing the ladder, it is not in getting a lot of money, it is working and being able to be involved with these interest areas.
My grandfather and Mark Nash both have a passion that continues to save the peregrine falcon to this day.
That's what I got in this for, is to help and do something. Leave an everlasting impression that the average guy, the average person, really this is the point, can do a lot. All you have to do is make the decision to do something, focus on that, and do it.
Sure, this was an imposition, and it was difficult. We had to find food sources, we had to find the dollars to be able to do it, but this was something we felt was important, and that was where our energies went.